Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello and welcome to the Women in Motorsports. Joe San Diego here, and we have Daniel Zeri from the Mugello circuit. Good morning, Daniel. How's everything going, and what's going on this weekend over there?
Good morning, Joe. As you said, I'm in Mugello right now. Sorry if it's a little bit noisy because here in the media center there's a press conference going on. So apologies if there's a little bit of noise, but I hope you can still hear me well. There's the Chadwick 12 Hour of Mugello here, the second round of the 24-hour series. The first round was in Dubai, the famous 24-hour race. And then we had the non-championship race in Abu Dhabi, 6-hour race. But this is actually the first race of the European season. So it's going to be really interesting because we have 3 female drivers here. And obviously the reigning champion, Samantha Tan.
3 female racers and Samantha Tan, of course, one to watch each and every week when they're racing. Now, of course, one of the big stories you've been following just about all month long has been from the testing at the W Series leading up to just this past week. We got the announcement of the 2022 W Series lineup. 17 drivers total, 5 rookies. And one of those rookies is going to be teammates with the 2-time champion Jamie Chadwick, Chloe Chambers. She'll be joining Jamie and Jenner Racing. And of course, the team owned by Caitlyn Jenner, based out of the United States. Chloe, 17 years old, from the United States, American team owner, and of course, with her teammate, Jamie Chadwick, a lot of potential there to really, I think this could be one of the power teams for 2022. Daniel, do you think Chloe could gain a lot of experience having Jamie as a teammate?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I mean, Jamie Chadwick is a 2-time champion in W Series, one of the most experienced drivers in that championship. We saw Chloe in Barcelona last week, as you mentioned. She was quite fast, so I really was not that much surprised that she made the cut into the 2022 W Series season. And obviously, also being an American driver, it quite made sense for Jenner Racing to get on board an American racer and continue that expansion for W Series into American territory and trying to get as much American audience, hooked into the championship. So it definitely made sense. And I think also Chloe mentioned that she was really happy to be teaming up with Jamie, because of course she can learn a lot from drivers like her. And she was also happy to have Caitlyn Jenner as a team owner, because of course being a former athlete, quite elite athlete, former gold medalist, she said that she had something to learn also from that. So I think it's going to be interesting from the American audience as well.
Yeah, very interesting for the American audience to see Chloe Chambers, really, I think this is interesting because it's not too often in international motorsports do we have such a young American, 17 years old, being such a high profile. Of course, W Series, yes, it's a feeder series, but this is getting some high profile recognition since it's going to be in Miami, following F1. And I think this could really introduce American fans to the feeder system of racing in Europe. Now, of course, as I mentioned, she is one out of five rookies. Teresa Marikova, Bianca Bustamante, Emily DeHu, and Juju Noda are all going to be rookies in the W Series. And Noda, 16 years old, she is the youngest rookie, but no team has yet been announced with where she's racing. Now, one driver noticeably missing, Arena Sedikova, who has been on the grid, and unfortunately, the W Series said she would not compete until further notice. Now, Daniel, we know that is probably complicated with the W Series being based out of the United Kingdom. They place a ban on Russian drivers there. W Series, of course, is not dependent on the drivers bringing in sponsorship. Arena didn't have a deal with a sponsorship. It wasn't something similar like what we saw with Haas and Uralkali, where there was a lot of money from Uralkali that couldn't make it to Haas. Considering how the FIA had allowed Russian drivers to compete under a neutral flag under certain conditions, were you surprised Serdakova was still sidelined?
Well, I would say not surprised because you perfectly summed up the fact that W Series is essentially a British championship. So as you mentioned, the British Federation, Motorsport UK, went against the FIA guidelines, I would say, and they effectively banned all Russian drivers from this season. Some other drivers have raced, for example, in the FIA Formula 3 last weekend. Some will be racing in the Formula Regional Championship, obviously all under the neutral flags. But yes, I was, as I mentioned, not surprised that Irina has been sidelined by W Series. But still, there's as you mentioned, there were no sponsor money involved, so still a solution could have been found. She is part of the SMP racing program, which has folded effectively because they will not be allowed to support any of their drivers in international motor racing this year. But it wasn't the case because Irina was not getting her sponsor money from SMP this year, but she had automatically qualified for W Series this year, with despite missing 3 races last year. So I would say that it's a little bit disappointing, but of course it's understandable because of the whole situation. We all know why what happened. So I think it was kind of predictable, but in a sense, she's still trying to train at the simulator. I know that she's still training at the simulator. She's hopefully, of course, she's 17, so she's very young. Still time to get a seat in the coming years. Hopefully, with this situation being solved soon. But yeah, I think we kind of saw that coming.
Yeah, it was something where it just seemed sort of inevitable, especially once the British Driver Federation made that announcement. It just seemed like it was going to be really hard because, of course, W Series based out of the United Kingdom, there's a race in the United Kingdom as well too. So it would just made really, I think, a complex situation for the W Series. Now, of course, 12 drivers are returning back from last year. Several drivers are now returning back: Sabri Cook, Vicky Perea, Gazia Rosette, Isla Agan, and Caitlin Woods. We know there is an 18th seat, but no driver has been announced. What's going to happen with that 18th seat? And could we see one of the drivers from last year that's not back return potentially that 18th seat?
Yes, I think the 18th seat is for a reserve driver. We saw that same format last year with the Puma car. Initially, Tasmin Pepper was supposed to race in the second Puma car last year. Then she had troubles to travel during the pandemic to Europe from South Africa, so she couldn't make it to the test. And then was a little bit difficult for her to come back to the championship. And so this format has been, we saw that this format last year with one reserve driver alternating behind the wheel of that car, and it kind of made sense because we saw Caitlin Wood, we saw Goisher Dest, and also Abby Pulling. Abby Pulling had her big break last year with effectively starting as a reserve driver. So I think it kind of makes sense to have a pool of reserve drivers that can alternate behind the wheel and kind of have their opportunity to showcase what they can do. And this is what it's going to happen with the 18th seat also this year. Still, we have no idea of the reserve drivers that we will have in W Series, but most probably there will be some returning drivers. So Abby Eaton, for example, was at the test in Barcelona. She was not in the car because she is still is recovering from her injury from Kota. But she definitely wanted to be back in the car, and I know that she's trying to test in Formula 3 machinery in April in order to see if she's fit enough to try to get back into a reserve driver role. But also probably we're going to see some other reserves. Still, we don't know if they're going to be all returning drivers. There will be some new drivers. We still don't know yet. But yeah, for example, you mentioned this Kipri, Sabre Cook. Sabre Cook also had a health issue. She had a surgery a couple of weeks ago. She's okay as far as I know now, but it will take a little while to recover. And I know that she was pursuing a program in the IMSA in sports car in America. And also Gojar Des will race in the Alpine Europa Cup also this year. Also, there is some other driver. Caitlin Wood is racing, is making her debut at the Nürburgring Nordschleife this weekend in the NLS. So they're trying to experiment some other championships as well. But I think that if they are called into action for W Series in a reserve role, they will definitely get back into the Formula 3 regional car.
Yeah, we interesting to see where everyone does end up following the W Series alumni. It seems really interesting. Like last year in Texas, the last two races, there was so much focus on getting in the top 8 in points to be automatically locked. It's going to be really interesting if that's going to be something of a new trend where every year towards the end of the season, we might be looking at, okay, who's in, who's out when it comes to being automatically locked for each and every season. Now, going already a little too far ahead with the end of the season, of course, the first race of the year, that's going to be in Miami, the street course, and that has a lot of unknowns. Nobody has raced at that circuit. It's only been, it's a street circuit. You can't race there except whatever's available on simulators. Racers, they're going to be at that track on that weekend, gaining track time, learning the circuit, qualify, and then go race. Since this is a brand new circuit, no driver has experience here compared to other past circuits where we've had one or two that raced there. Does this allow those rookies that I mentioned earlier to have an equal opportunity of taking a surprise win compared to a track where those series have visited and the veterans might have that advantage?
That's a very interesting question. I think, W Series has raced before on a street circuit. In the first year, they raced at Nürburgring in Germany, which is quite narrow track, but also fast because there are like two very long straights and hairpins at the end. And Marta Garcia won the race, so that was it was her only victory so far in W Series. So we can probably have a surprise victory there. Why not? Maybe one of the newcomers. We still don't know. Also, Emma Kimlainen was strong in Norris Ring, for example. There are not many drivers that have other experiences on other street circuits, as far as I know. For example, in Monaco, there was only Lena Buller racing in former regional European Championship last year, and of course she didn't make into the grid this year. But Fabian Baldwin, for example, had also raced, although in touring cars on on a street circuit. So I think yes, it's going to be very open, even though the drivers that we will probably see at the top end, at least at the beginning of the season, are probably the most experienced ones. And as the season will progress, probably we will see the newcomers getting them much closer to the front of the field. At least this is what we are used to. Even though last year, for example, Belen Garcia and Nerea Marti were really strong from the get go, and also Irina Sidorkova having her first podium in the second round. So it's going to be pretty open, I think. And being the track new, as you said, it can potentially have some surprises.
Yeah, potential for surprises is always there. First race of the year, a lot of times, I believe it was the first race of last year, we saw Chadwick was spun around backwards at the end of the first lap, put on a heck of an effort, came back, and of course, we all know, won the championship. And we're going to be following the W Series all season long when it comes to the 2022 season. Of course, part of the grid ranking. I think it's going to be a really exciting year for the W Series. One driver that we've been following all year long over in the NASCAR Camp World Truck Series has been Hailie Deegan. Hailie Deegan, of course, was in Atlanta Motor Speedway this past weekend. One of the big things, Atlanta Motor Speedway, it's a mile and a half oval, but not like a traditional mile and a half oval in the United States where there's a lot of off throttle time throughout the corner. They put a massive amount of banking there. So the trucks, the Cup Series, and the Xfinity Series, they were doing lap after lap, flat out. They were using a super speedway package. So you had a big pack, similar to what you see at the Daytona and Talladega, which are super speedways, not a mile and a half oval like Atlanta. For Hailie Deegan, unfortunately, her day ended really early. Finished 36 after a fire started in the back of her vehicle. Contact was made between her and another vehicle, which popped the tire. As that tire was flying all around, damaging parts, something caught on fire. When she came back on pit road to address the fire, really scary incident, especially you follow her YouTube channel. Where the fire was an intake for her to get some fresh, cooler air. When they hit that fire with the fire extinguisher, not only did it send black smoke, but it also sent those chemicals from the fire extinguisher to her breathing system. She was unable to breathe, was struggling to get out of the vehicle. Thankfully, one of her teammates from the pit crew managed to get her out of the vehicle on pit road. With the way NASCAR's rules are, if somebody has to be checked out in the medical facility, they are done for the day, and that was the case for Hailie Deegan. So tough break for her to go out so early, but thankfully she was okay after a really scary incident in the Camping World Truck Series last race weekend. Daniel, it's amazing what these athletes go through each and every week. We think motorsports is much safer compared to where it was 10, 20 years ago, but still the danger is there. Now, of course, Mugello, you're at the track there. We understand it sounds like free practice has just come to an end over there.
Yeah, exactly. Just ended, as you can probably hear. There's not that much noise now, and we have Samantha Tan in second position overall. She was behind the wheel in the very first minutes of the session. Then she was P4, and then her teammate got behind the wheel of the brand new BMW M4 GT3 car, the number one. And they are now finished in second place. They were leading for quite a while of the session, and the free practice session has now just ended, and we will have the qualifying later on today.
Yeah, we'll have more information about Samantha Tan's effort later today. Now, of course, last weekend we had quite a lot of sports car racing with IMSA, Sebring 12 hours, and I believe Catherine Lake was racing in Sebring this year as well too. Overall, when it came to Catherine's performance, we know she's done IMSA before, sports car racing. Sometimes it just seemed like bad luck, especially at Daytona. How did everything go for her over in Sebring this past weekend?
Well, for Catherine Legge, it was really unlucky last weekend because they always have the pace, but somehow they can't put everything together. They had a practice crash in on Thursday night practice, and the team had to rebuild the whole car. Basically, they had to switch over to a new chassis, and so they had to strip all the components of the car and put it on the new chassis. So they missed the other practice sessions, and they missed the qualifying, and the car was just ready in time for technical inspections on Saturday morning, just before the 12-hour race. So that was kind of a setback for Team Hardpoint and everyone. But still, they were starting from P14 in class, so effectively last in the GTD class. With, of course, Catherine said that the car was really hard to drive because, of course, with the new chassis and all the car just put together, they didn't have the time to go for a new setup and try the setup. So it was very hard for them to drive 12 hours of racing with a car that was quite undrivable from what we've heard. But still, they finished in P8, so second top 10 for them this year. Which is not quite probably what the potential that they have in GTD. But still, the season is long, and hopefully they will have another opportunity to get into top 5 and in podium. Because last year, for example, in Sebring, they were P5, and that was their best result of the season. So they definitely had the speed to try to be there again. But with that practice crash, really made everything more difficult for them.
Yeah, practice crash put them behind schedule. Just seems like two rough races. Hopefully, by the third race, they'll get everything sorted. And of course, speaking about two races, Sebring not only did it had the 12 hours, it had the 1,000 as well. A little bit shortened due to lightning, but we did see the Iron Dames, Rahel Fry, Michelle Gaddin, Sarah Bovey. They were all competing. I believe they finished 26 overall. Their race, how did that go for the Iron Dames?
It went pretty good for Iron Dames, actually. They were Sarah Bowie had a very strong start in qualifying, and she's really making a lot of progress in WEC, even though it's just basically it was her third race, I think, in the FIA World Endurance Championship. She qualified in P4, and they had the potential also for a P3, but still they managed to finish fifth. I think the fact that the race was cut short at the end quite took away the opportunity for them to get back into fourth or potentially third position. But still, a top 5 for them at Sebring, their first time at that race. I think it was quite impressive for them. Just the obviously first round of the FIA World Endurance Championship. And also there was the Richard Mille Racing team that this year, sadly, it's no more an all-female team. But we had Lilu Wadu making her debut in LMP2. She did quite well, even though she is still basically learning to navigate traffic in multi-class racing. But she was P12, and also it was the racing debut in WEC for rally legend Sébastien Auger. So I think that crew was still a little bit in testing mode. And I think next weekend it definitely will be better.
Yeah, definitely next weekend seems like a good opportunity to rebound for them. Now, getting towards the end of the show, we do have a question in the chat room from Adam. What do y'all think of Chloe Chambers being in the W Series this year? Then I'll go ahead and give you the question first.
I met Chloe at Barcelona. We had exchanged some messages, some emails before. I think she's really strong mentally. She is really focused. She has a lot of self-confidence, which is really good, obviously, for a young racing driver. But she's willing to learn, and I think having Jamie as a teammate, it's definitely going to achieve that. And I definitely think that she has the potential to be mid-pack at the start of the season, with potential to climb even higher. And for a rookie, I think in such a competitive field this year, I think that is quite something. Last year she was doing the Formula 4 in the US. which was her first racing season in single seaters, and she did pretty well. She had a top 10 also at one round. Had a few unlucky rounds, so could have probably finished a little bit higher. But in W Series, she had also tested the Formula Regional car, although the US spec car before. Just a test day, but it kind of set the tone for the W Series test. She didn't know the track. I think she doesn't know any of the track on the W Series calendar except for Dakota. So it's going to be a learning season for her. But she has a good team and a good teammate to compare data with, and so I think there's potential for points on a consistent level.
Yeah, the potential for having points on a consistent level and leaning towards Jamie Chadwick, learning a lot of stuff, but she's proven she has the pace as well. I think one of the big things, it seems sometimes rookie drivers, they get caught up in the moment, especially if they're having a good race. For some reason, lose a position, makes a big move, loses it all. So I think if she keeps a cool head, she has the confidence, she has the speed, she could be a huge star in the W Series. And being from the United States, I think that's going to get a lot of people really interested in the W Series this year, which may have not heard of it, especially in the United States. Not exactly the easiest to capture on television as well. We'll be following W Series, and of course, you'll be following W Series as well. Be sure to visit the website, Racer Behind the Helmet. There you can follow the full calendar of all the racing going on this weekend. As you can see, all the races that we have listed there on racersbehindthehelmet.com, as well as on the big stories, including one of the big stories we haven't talked about, Abby pulling Asil Al-Hamad. That's really exciting. And of course, Marta Garcia teaming up with Fabian Woolwin for the W Series for 2022. So a lot going on. Be sure to subscribe right here to the Grid Network and follow as well Racers, the Girls Behind the Helmet. For Daniel and Sari of Racers, the Girls Behind the Helmet, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.